Isn't it a common misconception that people often think once bombs and missiles are not falling in my immediate town or city, then we are not at war? So once bombs are not falling in Accra or in Nairobi, then we are not at war. I want to tell you that it's a big misconception. That if there aren't bombs falling in Accra, Kumasi, Tamale, or Ho, then Ghana is not at war. I saw this comment on a Facebook post where a Ghanaian youth claimed that because bombs are not falling in Accra, they are safe, they are not at war. And he would go and take his bowl of Kenkey or banku or fufu and sleep soundly, believing that whatsoever is happening in Russia, Ukraine, whatsoever is happening in the Middle East does not happen to Ghana directly. But it's a very big misconception. Don't forget that we live in a globalized world. A war in Eastern Europe or tension in the Middle East hits the Ghanaian dining table faster than people realize. International moves, including the Russian-Ukraine war, Israel-Iran tensions, and regional coup d'etat, profoundly impact Ghana and West Africa through increased food or fuel prices. These shocks drive high inflations and debt while shifting global attention away from regional security issues. I want to talk about the Ukraine effect, and I want to talk about the fuel and transport trap that war in other places pose to geopolitical regions. I want to talk about the Cedi versus the dollar, the Ghana Cedi versus the US dollar, then the security spillover that happens to the neighborhood. All right, so talking about the Ukraine effect. Russia and Ukraine are very huge exporters of fertilizer and wheat. So when the Russia-Ukraine war started, you could remember that prices of fertilizer tripled. They doubled or even tripled in West Africa. And that tells you that food prices would also double or triple. You see the effect? Food prices doubled or tripled because fertilizer prices went skyrocketing. If the farmer can't afford fertilizer, the price of cassava for that fufu or banku doubles at the market. And you are not exempt if you are paying double, if you are paying twice for that small bowl of kenkey or banku. Right? So the next time that you think that if bombs and shells are not falling directly on your city, then or your country, then your country is not at war. Remember that when two big elephants fight, the ground suffers. Yes, when two big elephants fight, the ground suffers. So tensions in the Middle East, the war in Ukraine and Russia directly and indirectly affects us here in West Africa, right? Yes, so the next thing we want to talk about is the fuel and transport trap that war in other places of the world poses on other countries in West Africa. Even if we produce some oil in Ghana, Ghana is a price taker in the global market, which means that we don't determine the prices. Even if we are selling our own product, we don't determine the prices. If we are buying from other people, we don't determine the prices. We take the price as it is. So if there is a move in the Strait of Hormuz, global oil prices spike. Suddenly, the trotro fare from Medina to Circle goes up. When transport goes up, everything from the sachet water to the fish in the soup gets more expensive. You might sleep soundly, but you will wake up with an empty pocket. So war in other parts of the world actually hits us severely, directly and indirectly than we often think. Next, we want to talk about the Cedi versus the dollar, the Ghana Cedi versus the dollar, the US dollar. When there is international tension, global investors get scared. They pull their monies out of risky markets like Ghana and hide the monies in the US dollar. This causes the cedi to lose value. A weaker cedi means that every imported item becomes very expensive. From the mobile phone I'm using to record this video to the cooking oil that is in my wife's kitchen, everything becomes more expensive. And from that, we think about the security spillover. Coup d'etat in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger aren't just their problem. Instability up north drives displaced people and extremist groups towards our borders. So we have to invest more money on surveillance, on border patrols. And if you remember the recent incident where Ghanaian tomato sellers were ambushed somewhere in Burkina Faso, and some of them were murdered, their trucks burnt, and they stripped them of all their belongings. That is a regional instability in Burkina Faso having a spillover affecting Ghana. Do you get it? Money that could have been spent on hospitals or schools will be used to strengthen border control. If the neighborhood is on fire, your house is at risk. Like I said earlier, if two elephants fight, it is the grass or the ground that suffers, right? So even if you haven't seen flames or bombs in your city yet, you must understand that any problem in our neighboring countries or even far away in the Middle East affects Ghana directly, affects our economy, affects everything around us. These geopolitical developments demonstrate that Ghana is highly vulnerable to external shocks, necessitating robust economic strategies and proactive diplomatic engagement. We don't need to be in a trench to feel the heat of a war. Our war is fought in the markets, at the fuel pump, and in our bank and Momo accounts. In this 21st century, isolation is a myth.
يا لطيف good good good.
I want to leave you with this quote or this adage that when the world sneezes, the pot of soup in a Ghanaian kitchen catches cold. So, mekamo, amo kana. This is High Times Africa, and I'm Joe Gamali. Be sure to subscribe, comment, and like so you do not miss my next upload. Thank you and God bless.